Peter Chelemengos. You know, I started on the exchange in 1976 as a clerk with, I think it was Lincoln Commodities. As a matter of fact, I was selling cars at Loop Imports, which was on LaSalle. It was they sold BMWs and Toyotas, VWs, I think. I used to look down the street at the Board of Trade. They'd see the building and they'd say, you know, that's where I'd like to be. So one day I went down the street and I went up one of the offices. They happened to be Lincoln Commodities, and I asked them if I could get a job. I knew I'd have to start as a runner. You know, they weren't going to put me in as a broker or a trader. But I said that I was ready at that time. I think I was about 25 years old. So I think runners made about $100, $125 a week. But I thought that that's where the future was. So I went into Lincoln's office and I said, I'd like a job. And he said, well, that's fine, but we don't have a job here at the Board of Trade. We only have a job at the Mercantile Exchange. And I said, gee, you know, I kind of wanted to work at the Board of Trade. He said, we got a job at the Mercantile Exchange. Take it or leave it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I started out there as clerk, worked for about a year with Lincoln. I worked with Conti Commodities for another year or so. At that time, the IMM was starting to get big. Actually, it started around 74, so I was there in 75 and 76. And there were a couple groups there, one being Maury Kravitz with John Oakman and Mike Benini, and they were doing a lot of business. And so I interviewed for a job with them, and they hired me. And as a matter of fact, they hired somebody else that was at the Board of Trade at the time. And so I went to John and I said, I can appreciate you took somebody with more experience. I said, but I'm going to be here in another 6 months to a year. I'll be working for someone else, and you're going to see me doing a good job and say to yourself, I could have had him at the right price. You know? So I think he liked that, and he ended up hiring me. He said, I don't know what I can do for you. He said, but I'll pay you $150 a week just to, you know, do charts and stuff like that. So I said, good, that's what I'll do. And I went back to Conti, and my friends that were on the phones and said, are you crazy? You're making $160 a week now with insurance and benefits. Why would you go someplace else for less money? To me, it was painfully obvious that in Conti, I wasn't going to go anywhere, but I had to be on the ground floor with something, which is what was happening then in the IMM. And sure enough, a couple of years went by, and finally they were doing a large amount of business, and they kept moving their guys up, me being one of them. And I think I got a membership in 1980 where we traded gold. The gold market was a good market for, you know, maybe another 5 years there. Then the S&P started. And the S&Ps, I remember them telling us to give them 15 minutes, you know, put in 15 minutes. So everybody'd spend a little time and then go back to their markets. The euro dollars opened at the same time, but the euro dollars was a slow market at the time. They never picked up, but the S&Ps almost immediately started trading. You remember that ended up being a great market. And then we did a lot of business all the way up until 1987 in the crash. After the crash, we had, you know, we ended up dying off, and all the euro dollar traders ended up being the big guys on the floor. But I traded there. I traded in the Swiss franc and a couple other markets there. But I think the trading floor, you know, my impression of the trading floor was that it was a place for regular guys, you know, guys that didn't necessarily have a talent for anything or didn't have an education that was specific to this business, allowed them to take advantage of their aggressiveness and their ability to think on their feet, because that's actually what it is for us. I mean, I know a lot of guys that came through here. A lot of guys didn't stay, but the guys, and again, not related to education or even what you think, you know, somebody would be extra smart that they do well. And it wasn't about that. I think it was about kind of a mano-a-mano type of thing, you know, getting in there and scrapping for trades and making things work that way, especially for the pit trader. Now, there were order fillers like myself that, you know, you kind of, it was nice because you had an income. So if you had an income trading, you know, filling orders, you had the ability to put some of that back in the market, you know, as opposed to just coming down there with a little bit of money or whatever and trying to trade. So that's true. I mean, you make a lot of good friendships. I've met a lot of good people. And I think the most memorable moment that I can remember was in the S&Ps. And one of the traders that was with us, I don't know if I mentioned his name, but it was David Goldberg. He had a real distinctive look. You know, he had kind of a bigger nose, and he had a bushy mustache at the time, and he used to wear these accountant type of round glasses. So one of the traders, just before the open, about 10 minutes before the open, came in with a bag of about 100 glasses with the nose and the mustache, and he passed them all out. And before the bell rang, he announced to the pit that it was David Goldberg Day, and everybody put the glasses on. And it really, but you know what? It wasn't even making fun of him as much. It was a fun, you know, it was a friendship day. I mean, it was all taken well, and everybody had a great time. That's the kind of camaraderie you had among 200 or 300 guys in a pit. You know, it really was that. I think the most important thing that a trader needs on the floor, other than the ability to, you know, to stand around there and do it and take the pressures, is that he has to have integrity, because that's something that I think from the time when I started up until the present time is the only thing that keeps you in good standing with other people. It's not about when you make money or lose money, it's how you react to those situations in both cases. You know, when you have out trades, and a lot of it depends, and you probably can find your way out of it or deny making a trade now. And again, now it's a little bit more difficult because you know, everything's documented. But in years past, everything was done on a handshake. We didn't turn trades in every 15 minutes. It was easy to be less ethical. But your reputation was important. That's how we got here. Without that, we wouldn't have been second and third generation traders. That specific thing, I think, was paramount, and I think it was something that all the guys that stayed here had and shared. We knew who the bad guys were. We knew who the guys were that you couldn't trust, and they pretty much were shunned. And I don't remember many, if any of them, that ever survived, you know, the whole experience. But the guys that stuck around, and that's why when you look at friends now and guys that have been in the pit for 20, 30 years, there's more to it than just saying, I know who he is. You really know who he is. You know what type of person he is. And that's something that you don't find in all walks of life or in all businesses. Well, my fondest memory, as I said, was the David Goldberg, remember. Charities. You know, other than charitable cases, and I mean, I think that's the only, I mean, we always had the Merck charities, I mean, things that we did through, I can't quite remember what the name was, but we always made donations, and Mercantile themselves, for the last, and maybe it started about 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago, had a charitable foundation that donated for. But you know, the charity really is a lot of traders that help other traders, and I know in my case, there have been clerks, brokers, and other people that have been in bad situations, and we always try and help them out, you know, and the thing is, I think the most important thing is it's not really like a business loan. In all those cases, you realize that there's probably a better chance than not that you're not going to get your money back. That's the hardest money to loan in most cases. But I think, you know, that's almost a contribution to the society, to the trading society. I think if you know somebody needs help, it's kind of, you know, you see a little of yourself in that and realize that, you know, you're fortunate the fact that you're not put in that situation and that things are going okay for you, and you empathize with people that have difficulties, and you kind of pitch in and do it. And so for that, I think that, you know, everybody that had a similar mind felt charitable in that respect, along with other private charities that they were involved in. How many other traders that had children that were involved in things, and we always, and that was, you know, they'd just come around and say, I need a check for $250 or $500, and we did it. I mean, I don't think anybody ever had a problem with that. So, but that's pretty much it. You know, I've had a great experience down here. I've been down trading for 30 years, probably overstayed my welcome. But I don't think I trade the experience in for anything else. It really has been a good experience.